Okay, good. Hello. Isn't good. We'll say the prayer on page number 10. We'll say in Tibetan two times, and afterward we'll say in English one time, and I will let you the number. In English, on page number 11, I take refuge in the Guru, I take refuge in Buddha, I take refuge in Dharma, I take refuge in Sangha. From now till enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And Lord, create this practice, may I attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness and comfort. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and causes. May all sentient beings be separated from joyfulness. May all sentient beings find equanimity, feel bias, attachment, and anger. This ground, mountain perfume, strewn with flowers, mountain berries, and circled by the four continents, surmounted by the sun and moon. I visualize this Buddha kingdom. May all living beings enjoy the pure land. Hidam Guru Nanda
약간 어쩌면 삼절실식이요.
This is squat. This is mute. This is a mute.
Okay. Good morning to you all. Thank you for coming, and glad to see you all. Welcome.
아니 아주 다리 떠는 공자인스.
So we're going to recite in the Aryantara mantra and the practice meditation.
다 당보네 사위 무길등하는 소소네 지 그롱로 단다유비 나차드 소지 심지탐지 등을시나 삼비 무기 지전에 탐망화데 디체데 뭐지세.
So our primary goal for this practice is obviously try to contribute something that is positive and help all the beings on the planet Earth in this very moment, or have to deal with the sufferings of created by or caused by the pandemic COVID-19, and that's our goal and the primary goal. And at the same time, also think about through this kind of practice, we can promote, we can uplift ourselves to the point where then we can address the sufferings of others in general.
어떻게 아니 소디 다네 지도말라 소답지는 알아서 링의 성공이 샘기 고민이 칸한 응합니 응어서 칸이 응어니게단 하석 어들리 리동 링의 성공이 지네 지도말라 소답이 티테텔라테네 소놈기 초츠비 니와 텔라테네 심지단 대화당단 바당 등은 다 잡을 수 있지 세네 조드 있는 거죠. 진짜 다 까마 가시스랑데 샘도 마양하지 리슴 링웨스 뭐 니식도 지천로 말아 지식 소아도니 다른 도인지.
Yes, so we have the very resource that we can use to achieve our goal. The goal is to address, to help all sentient beings. The freedom from the suffering, the cause of suffering is our own very body, speech, and mind. So how are we going to utilize our body, speech, mind, and to achieve this goal here in particular is that we're going to bring our body, speech, and mind and to the practice of Aryantara mantra recitation, and which is meditation. And so it is based on the understanding that this kind of spiritual practice and this dedication and cultivation would help us to accumulate the merits. And then the merits itself has the power, has the ability, and it could help they promote us or uplift us again to the states or to the position where we can and entitled, not only entitled, but we are sort of equipped with, and we are being programmed and with power, and then we can go and approach to others and help others free from and help them free from suffering and cause of suffering. So we're going to sit and this is our goal. We're going to take a few minutes and sit in silence, and the main point is, again, so while you are practice the mantra recitation, and make sure you bring all and everything and which into one particular point of the place, if there's such a thing can be named. Again, of course, it's the internal, your meditative object. So you must try to bring everything, your attentions, your energies, and your body and speech and mind, all the forces in, and then place them all in a one that very place, and then focus on it.
뭐들 옴다리도 다리들이 소다시 띵가티 돈도 당부 다리 당부데 돌마세데 등을리 탐지 등 롱어 심지 로마 모롱 페 등을리 좋아 마스 심지 탐지 형텔에 지선당나 등을리 좋다 봐야죠 돌마세 네 니와텔라 다리 니와텔라 니르마세데 강라 소아담니 텔라 소아담나 텔리 등을리 소소소스당서 등을 세와라 틀리 니르와인베나 니르마세 화모 선바텔라 화모세데 아니 직당 안에 심진 그 전도 시바테 빨리 갈이 하워 소소sem나 아르시면나 아니 지 샘시 창로 왔던 때 연구 저 진도마 때는 많이 봐 강이 가르요나 도는 짓음니 동부 샘기는 공부로 상은 기월 지도마 안에 범위기 때 상기 그래서 안에 화르다담비 그 신밤에 봐 아니 샘진 돈 시발 신밤에 비 니와던 담바 진짜 아니 캬버슴 동담 바텐데 telata ngi suatap chene jawso chi ngatun to semla tamba chene don rochi.
So we know that Aryan Torah mantra involved with the Om Dari Tu Dari Turi Soha. So as when you say Om Dari, and its first Dari is translation, and it's a Sanskrit, of course. In translation, and would it be? It's an equivalent translation. Would it be the mother of the liberation, okay? And or mother who liberates, right? The mother of the liberation, and here is referred to that Aryan Torah, and who through her own practice and be able to now is a completely and totally or absolutely equipped or and achieved the all the spiritual and enlightened the qualities, and then with that quality, and she is has the power and has the compassion, kindness, and to free. Here, free means liberating and or uplifting or release all the beings who are suffering. So yes, think about this particular spiritual attributes of the Aryan Torah, and when you say Om Tari, and then Tutari. So we said Tutari, and think about that's the way in terms of how the mother of the liberation, the mother who liberating all sentient beings, is in terms of the way she does this, perform her the deeds of liberation is rather swiftly and spontaneously and instantaneously, meaning the yes, it's instantaneously and spontaneously. So there's no really at a time or the distance involved, but rather is right way and right here, and instantly. And so this is second, the spiritual attributes or the supreme qualities of Aryantara, and we think about that. And then we say Om Tara Tara Duri Soha, and think about the translation is the heroic, the supreme or the exalted lady or the goddess. Okay? So exalt the lady or the supreme and the goddess here means that she's the one and who is in terms of helping others free themselves from the suffering, the causes of suffering, and who is who has who is very fearless, and who never ever experience any thing like the setback or sort of a disappointed or lost hope and or feel defeated. No, Aryantara and the mother of the liberation never ever has such a feeling. That's because she herself, through her previous, prior to her own perfect enlightenment or attainment of perfect enlightenment, she dedicated herself thoroughly in the body of a female. So, in other words, she was a female, and then in the female body, and she attained the Buddha, become a perfectly enlightened being. So, and because of this experience and the way she, how she attended the enlightenment, so therefore she is fearless, and she's powerful, and she never ever feel defeated or the being sort of that has to deal with obstacles, but rather she doesn't have to deal with this. Not like us, because we know that our experience is that when we generally and try to help others to do something good, and we often find it's very difficult. Sometimes not just setback, but we have to involve lots of hardships. And here in Aryantara's case, no, she's not, because she has went through all these things and experiences and attend the Buddhahood. Now she can perform the enlightened deeds rather spontaneously and heroically and simultaneously and without any fear. So we're going to do this in the 这个生干嘛生字过来是我生字特别
零比生的，零个生过那那些的那说的位置，是吧？
Oh yeah. So just like I said before, so keep those three supreme qualities of Aryantara in your mind, and then bring your mind, body, speech, and to the object of your meditation, and single pointedly and reciting the mantra.
This is
page number 74.
Nande ma la mo ru ma la shan sa ru ma de re pa mo de da ra ye je kun se ma de re don na tam je de ma so ye ge chen la ran de da re de re so 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 Da re de da re de re so da re de da re de da re de. so dare so Day near the dodges and Roman the journey, draw Mali, what is Sala Cooper, so Simpson, a caution. Yet the later Jersey, Ruin and Mali, what of the Shumwa, Maple Show, Manata, Damba, Song, Danger, River, and Rose and Bola, so but young Sam down, danger. Yeah, that cuts on to the Mount Walk. Which I did.
Okay. Now, let's continue our text.
Tani Dunson Tamba, Siliki Topanas, Golo Mashas. She won Simpson Dingan Hazuki, Ijopala, Nyanji, Gombershagiwali, Chi Tisimla Zombie, Kanzangashi, Segi so Johnson Poma Tongi, Minyepi, Guni, Nyanji yet the Shepan, Nyanji Golos. That Golos said, Azuina. Jigui don't the match till it don't teach Yagila Golosura. Tendata in the Golo than the Kashi Chingura. What Tanda Yanji Golo said it and the deed that thing in this chapter.
So please go to your copy translation on page 103. And the last version and the subtitle, explanation of what appears in the text as a maxim. Don't apply a wrong understanding. We should acquire ourselves with compassion for sentient beings tormented by various sufferings, but to feel pity for those who are slightly troubled by lack of food or clothes as a result of their enduring to listen to and thinking about religion is inverted compassion. So here we're going to talk about the different forms of inverted something that is kind of wrongly done or carried out obstinately, and you can say that is perverse intention. Okay, a perverse intention. And inverted compassion is one of them. And so I'm going to explain what it is inverted compassion and other perverse intentions are.
Chitan Yanji said, Dinglitan is some Samluchua. Dinglitam the Samlote Chitani, Michik Loshinchelo, Lam Los and Doguna, Tele Trevi, Dinglitan Sam Samlutella, the Yanji Dundang Tambachiri. The Mato Michik Kali Jamnita, Count Kua Lopitina, they were not Kimasin, such a conversation, such a part. Hojongji Nikuna, Kangal Mambuyore. They Kangal the Pamakashi Korlochenipe, Kolochin, Monijina, Pagati, Kali Jamni, Hojongchi is a Kali Yamazon, the Shuhas, Longona Chisini, Ranjon Tata Chindoina. And if called Jimamau in the Lumter and be Yargisonic, the kicking on Rogora. Tensa, they Chigamazo, they Dingata, Kanga, Dingers in the Picalan, and the Til Hojon Chigamazo, Conjunct, the Corondo Bayua Chigana, which was on the Samu Yomar. Komao in the Lam Samutang, the Lapatanda, Salon Jomecha, Cotin Tolan, Jimako, Ya Salon Soda, Gay Yondega Meaj in the Pamak Dig Notichungo. There's a thing in a Jigor. But in that day, some Metana Sama, Hamabitum with the day, not some tig and la Samutang, which you cook what it's to Rabbi Koranla, Tabi Hobjon Chur, Hobjon Tito Chit, which you Jin Jongo, the Pamiling each other. A Pamaniga short the Dumni, Jigor Mato, and a young short Pama Pamakanojiki, 담보다 정도 파마 간호직 때랑 파좀 쇼로 진에 보기 쇼로 진에 든지 좀 맞고 제선로 든지 좀 맞고 쇼니 니가 넘지네 그 호종라 파 저기 칼리때 장 칼리 등을 때서 요르 등을 때 반영 그 전에 호종도 탈심 받지 때 지고를 맞고 때 등을 때는 잼네 때 향지 진에 답에 든지는 때 향지 걸로 다 그만 롱주를 좀 멀리때는 코로나 향지 코로나 몰라 향지는 티처를 다 치쇼라 이런소때 뭐마 아니 지금 몰라 총 그거는 곰자니 다르소티 롬바트니 잠바 맞창 잠바스게 다 남았잖니 파 사체 잠바정도 다 보모되게 지금 몰라 통진 뭐베 샘교르스 샘교 양지 께스 뭐 지금 몰라 양지 단데 그 돌로는 된데 문데 가까이 문데 통 캄보스 그나는 된데 지금 대신 양마지 다 세다 다들 초로와 정수 뭐 근데 지금 멀리 켄지네니 ngurjangne pomot ta kuzun mo namando sati me mongbuzo sati na malite na khorwanyang ji khorite na malanyang ji mali sambe na mala gi la gom tong tokpa thongchi ne pe chuli dekki kangyang la ni dawr ta ina te ko pa ta na ten ding ngong no ta liki nam jir te tang lo ten chi re dawr ta ina ko sem kang la ko pu so ba chwa dawr kali japin rio te ko to ba sanji ji company do ko 야, 다 멀리때는 코로나냥지데 코로나라때는 다 보모때 오는지 다 달라줘니 텐디진 로기 요르다. 다 티파소는 뭐 성랑그 능 미터트니 뭐 성전지가 나서 뭐 성전때니 양다 팀면 모줄 제니 제니 다 제니 직tin 경고고라 강을 몽부스 그나라 네고자 아니 멀리때는 코로나냥지다 동도트니 용어 때자 때 냥지 지당때 아니 꼴록지 양 말이 다 드셔고 아니 그냥 아주 미 타만하고 튕긴 로미 주방하고 땡들라 양아롱도 다냥 지는 문제 때나 그런 때 남록과 정말 때 느끼고 말다 진짜 때 참아 그바동 담비고는 향지 지고를 판사들라 판토지 노바 연구나 때다 갈 동영자고
So the first sort of the wrong compassion or inverted compassion is that you think that you are practicing compassion or you are being very compassionate. In fact, if you examine your intention and outcome, you will find that actually you are not practicing compassion. So the misunderstanding the compassion and then actions follow that very misconception is not the compassion itself, which we can call like the text says here is in fact it is not compassion, but rather it is inverted compassion. So speak of before we discuss about the inverted compassion, let's take a moment to think about what is really compassion, right? Compassion in general, as we know, that is the mind, is the understanding, is the attitude, and is a state of mind of it's a state of mental being that is aimed to free all sentient beings and by large and all sentient beings from suffering, or that a state of mind or the attitude, intention is directed to help someone free him or her or them from a particular suffering or causes of suffering. So in other words, if someone who is mistakenly doing something and then experiences suffering, and so that very mistaken view or the misdeeds, further, if you see that person, further lead that person into a more kind of devastating consequences, right? And then you develop an attitude of mind or intention, and or you sort of be brought yourself to the state of the mental state of a being where you have all this mental, and not just the intention itself, but the forces and the sense of dedication. You want to free that person who is mistaken about one's view, and also mistakenly doing the things which is considered to be in fact is a misdeed, is wrong. So that very mind intention and the action followed by that intention to free that person or him and or them and from the misdeed and misview, that form of the intention and mind is a compassion. This is it is the genuine compassion. And like one of the great Tibetan master from a Sakya tradition, and the Sakya Panchita Gunga Jensen, in his the collection of his wisdom saying, he says that eloquent speaking speeches. What he says that the person who the individual who dedicated himself to become a highly accomplished, highly knowledgeable person, and at the time of his her learning, and suffering is inevitable, or he or she has to experiencing the suffering. So from the Gunga Jensen's collection of wise saying, what we can learn here is that when you set up your goal and to be a great scholar, to be someone who knows much, a lot, and then you have to enduring, you have to undertaking or experiencing some sufferings. That is necessary, which is a part of the process, right? So that means you have to you have to go and to deal with the suffering, right? Unfortunately, right, and not everyone, particularly in the case of the family and like the parents, and there are parents whose parenting skill and at this particular context or cases, unfortunately, is not really as right or as good as what the Sakya Pandita and the master Gunga Jensen suggested. Why? Because when you go from the individual families, and particularly if you pay attention to their parenting skills, some parents, and so the way they treat their kids or guide their kids with the schoolwork, and when they see the homework is kind of take them and requires them and put it long hours, or the subject matter is difficult, and or they have to sacrifice like a meal time, and or some kind of sports or some kind of entertainment, and the kids the kids if complain, and then there are parents who say, okay, then leave it, okay, come on, okay, you don't have to do the kids. So they think that they are being compassionate. They think that they are doing something that is can be categorized as a compassionate deed. In fact, it is not. Why? Because as a young child, especially like elementary school students or middle school students, and because of their age and the development of their mental or intellectual experience haven't yet fully mature, haven't developed to the point where they can think a long-term goal, right? And or they're doing the things right here now, which is can lead them is connected to their lifetime goal, because they haven't really yet know what to do in their life or with their life. So they're not worried about if they haven't finished or don't finish homework on time with good quality, they're going to affect their future and the lifetime, the long-term future goals. They don't have such a capacity. So therefore, as a parent, you have to let the kids, and undertaking some kind of or go through some kind of a reasonable discomfort and encourage them to sacrifice and the playtime or so entertainment, so support them and encourage them and guide them to be focused on their homework and finish it on time, right? So because this is the way which will eventually lead that very kids with this small, reasonable, endurable suffering or discomfort, right? A sacrifice, and he or she eventually will get a better education, and as a result of that, he or she can have a much better life and a quality of life later on. So speaking of this parenting, the skill of parenting, and I must also point out that say that very often you will see there between the mother and the father and the way they parent is a lot of times they kind of disagree, particularly when it comes to the homework, come to the schooling, and come to the education. And maybe father will take it more seriously and the more strict, and then to the kids and want them to do well at school. And maybe mother actually is the one who more strict and who is more sort of serious about the kids and put some pressures on the kids. Want to make sure our kids can finish school and do well and can do better at the school, but the father probably are not. And on the other hand, opposite, doing something opposite. So come on, that's okay. That's not a big deal. And as common sense, we know that when you come into the parenting and teach your helping your kids with the schooling, with the academic as scholastic work, you must working together. Okay, you cannot just say, "Oh, I want to show my compassion, and I have compassion for them, so therefore leave them alone and let them do their own way," which is generally speaking, which is not really the right way to do it. So this is, of course, here in our today's life. But back in Tibet, in ancient time, like in the 13th century, sometimes back to Tibet, there is actually a story tells that some Tibetans also have, and practiced or did this what we call the inverted compassion. The story related to the great tantric yogi of Tibet, Milarepa. The master Milarepa was one day as usual, meditated in the cave up the mountain somewhere in west part of Tibet, and down below the hill or the cave where Milarepa is sitting, meditating, and there was the family, a villager actually come to one family. They got together to celebrate. They try to have a very good time by celebrating the wedding, performing the wedding ceremony to congratulate a young woman, young lady, and who is going to go to another village and married to a man, and then other side of hill in the different village. And so where the people got together and they dressed up and they cheer up and they're kind of very happy and good. So on their way to pass from the bride village to groom's village, and they pass by where Milarepa's cave. and then this young lady who is going to get married with in the next village, upon saw Milarepa is in such a kind of a poor shape, meaning wearing very ragged clothes and have nothing around. So and then she felt a great pity on Milarepa, and so she thought, oh, what a poor Milarepa. She thinks she is the one very fortunate and doing very well, and Milarepa, on the other hand, is very miserable and doing very poorly. And so Milarepa, of course, can read others' mind upon and read that bride's mind, and then she and Milarepa began to start singing a spiritual song, or the song of expressed her understanding and through the song of enlightenment. Of those Doha, and so then she's thinking and very cheerfully and very kindly, and so in his song, and he said, "You were in the you're on the horseback, and on the other side, and you got married, and you think you are doing very well and very fortunate." And you show your pity, and you think that you have compassion for me, and you are very compassionate. In fact, I have the much greater compassion and for you, because now you are going to you are actually experiencing the suffering of being separate from your own family, your parents, and your family, and your villages, and your close friends, and a familiar environment, and where you've been very well protected. Now you go to the unknown and the world, and where you have to be the members of a new family, and as a bride traditionally, and you have to do lots of housework, and you have to handle lots of responsibilities, and you have to raise kids, and taking care of the family business, and working hard, and please your husband, and so on and so forth. Of course, you have no chance to address the suffering and the causes of suffering of the samsara. And so I am, on the other hand, here up on the hill, and I experienced the bliss of the liberation, and I'm totally free from the causes of suffering and the suffering itself. So this story and a comparison, and through the Milarepa's story, we know that some kind of compassion, you think you have to be careful whether you are compassionate or not. And in our day-to-day life, for example, when you met someone on the street who asked you for a couple of dollars, right? Or some changes asking you from the street. But if you kind of feel so sure that person is very drug addicted, then you should not give the money to him or her. And even you think that that's compassion, right? And in fact, you have to know, and which is not the form of compassion which we talk about, right? Because you know that your dollar and your donation is going to further hurt him or her. So therefore, any kind and action of kindness or compassion, particularly, it has to be guided by the wisdom and guided by the very clear understanding and a sound logical reasoning. And the bottom line is that you knew that the situation you cannot help, but you want to be helpful. However, you feel your lack of the capacity, and you cannot do anything about it. The best thing to do is just stay in the state of neutrality or being in the state of neutral and or equanimity.
어떤 내용이죠? 드니다 니와들스 섬진지 또도 조비성이 토브른도 토퍼 능능거와리 저 코리 분소 차버드 신디 디비 닝거소 돈도 니르완 담바콜로스 담바세 드린 도바준 도바데 콜로바레스 따뜻하죠 직당하죠 기위시 치징긴즈기나 치강제와 티슴고즈 강제와 상지지 공통 토비 쳇데 넘바든 도바티 쳇더니 정말 제고르마도 대마이방에 정화지는 등이 다 소소네 닝크르즈도 나라 멍 요고 용화당 멍 침고 용화당 안에 나라 조라 펀주 속바 용화 된데 돈도 니라이나 데 돈이 데 콜로바레스 그러라 딱히도 로즈 등이 되듯이 잡고라 됐지.
So now here we need to set an intention to attend on ultimate. We need to set an intention to attend ultimate enlightenment for the sake of all living beings. But to do so out of interest in worldly prosperity in general and the rewards and honors of this life in particular is a perverse intention.
대자다 동성아도 땅다 본부는 뭔고 요라 본부는 좀 넘바지는 좀 뭔지 본부 땅은 넘바지는 나랑 그 니와정 담비니 연던 땅 정땅 셔럽도 탐지 배추 땅는 로아심지 탐지라 내지정 따 타바지긴 삼로 든지직 땅네 본부는 거나 든바 돈당 담바래 네 든데 나랑지 좀땅 요한테 강지는 명망랑 고건로 땅네 나한테 권이 톱송아이나 나랑 생년 쪽 침부터 그랬대 이제는 이 반전도 고자다가 마가스 상황 매어서 그래 근데 갑자기 자고 된자다 나한테 지랑 보고 서면 맞잖아 어때다 지속니스는 더 막걸로 그랬어.
So the second thing, and we discussed about the inverted compassion. Here, we're going to talk about what the text says is a perverse intention, which is a form of an inverted attitude or wrong attitude. Generally speaking, of course, we always have to have an intention, right? Aspiration, and a clear motivation, and have a very clear sort of goal and purpose, and then let that lead us, right? And be our sort of guidance. But sometimes, if we're not careful, then we might would instead have the pure intention, a correct intention, a good intention, and we might have the wrong one, right? Which is here in text called the perverse intention. The perverse intention is the opposite of intention that like the bodhicitta, right? Our practice of enlightenment, right? Want to be Buddha, right? By dedicating ourselves to become a fully enlightened one, to become a Buddha, that is the right intention, and that is the pure intention, that is the correct intention, right? So for that reason, and for that very purpose, you dedicate yourself to the process of listening to the Dharma teaching and contemplating or investigating or examining, right? And do serious research about the Dharma teaching, and then you brought the knowledge and the concepts, right? Or your conviction into the actual spot of the mental exercise, which is the meditation itself. That is a good intention, right? That is the right intention, and that is the executed. The intention is being executed correctly and purely. unfortunately, if you're not careful about the intention that you set, then you might find out yourself, or you actually you're not. You think you are doing the right thing. You are executing, right, exercising the right intention or follow the right intention. You probably is doing something nothing to do with your goal or fundamental goal of to become a Buddha or to become enlightened at all. For example, here in the Dharma teaching, right, you listen carefully, and then you do a lot of investigation and a lot of examinations, right, and carefully analyze, and then you. But if the underlying of your sort of goal is kind of quietly switched to the to the purpose of gaining something that is focused on this life alone. For example, it's good name, more money, and more sort of property, and become more famous, and so on and so forth. If you yes, if you are very learning of the Dharma action and the analysis, the action of the dedication of the study of the Dharma and the meditation, and if sort of been used to achieve this worldly prosperity, right, and something that's worldly and concern, and then this is what we call it here is a perverse intention. This reminds me about nowadays, right, in the world, particularly in this very day, today actually, nowadays, in the democratic country and other people where they practice democracy, there are lots of people who are so interested and they are so excited wanted to be the candidates, right? And then they go on the campaign and collect a fund, and they call for everyone's attention, say, vote for me, and I want to be your the local leader, and I want to be the national leader, and so on and so forth. They make quite a noise and advertise, and they try to reach out everyone. I want to become a very powerful politician or someone who is the leader, and so those people, doing such a thing, you might wonder, right? And how many people who right, say, I want to be the candidates of the House of Representatives or the House of the Senator, whatever the government or local institutions. How many of them indeed in their mind, intention, right? They have the right intention. That intention is not a perverse intention, but rather is the good intention. Okay. So how we can determine their intention, whether it's perverse or not? Here is the thing, I guess. If, of course, this is only relevant to those people. If they say, publicly say they want to help out the society and the community and the party or the nation, but indeed, if they knew in their mind, they also sort of clearly see by being elected, right? Become elected officials, become the powerful politician or the decision maker, local leader, and they can gain more money. They can make more money, and they can become more rich. They could become richer, and in fact, they also can take an opportunity to do something revenge, to give it a hard time to the someone who was not nice to him or her. If that very politician, the candidates, even though they said nice things publicly, if he or she in the back of their mind has such an intention, that intention is a perverse intention. Yes, that's we must to know. And so in our case, so our intention in the Dharma practice must be always remain clear and pure. And our dedication, our practice must not seeking for anything that is socially becoming, has a higher position and materially they can gain more wealth, and or we can become someone more powerful, and therefore we can control others or defeat the individual which we previously we considered as our enemy. So that's the thing. So we must be very careful about our intention. La. So yeah, the probably I missed it part of the translation. Let me try again. So the right intention, here we talk about the perverse intention, right? The right intention, the pure intention is you set a goal, right? And you want to help the community and at the local level or at the national level, and then you stick on to that very intention, the pure intention, or do the things that matches what you have proclaimed or you asserted during the campaign, and so that's the right intention, but that is not the perverse intention.
Oh yeah, the 좋아요. 잠깐만this 잠깐만 중화 수까지 놓다다. 좋아요는 좋아하면 그냥 좀 시켜주세요.
So we have about 15 minutes, and up until now, do you have any questions related to what we have talked about or we have discussed so far? And feel free to ask if we don't have any question. Maybe I can continue.
Okay. 잠깐만. 드니나다 드니. Oh yeah.
Being compassionate involves a certain amount of consideration, if I understood correctly. So my question would be, how can you be considerate but not judgmental?
Could you please rephrase? And the sound quality was not that good.
You didn't hear it?
You can come closer.
Yeah, so about being compassionate, if I understood correctly, it involves a certain amount of consideration from our part when we are trying to help other people. So my question would be, how can you be considerate but not judgmental? Because I see a little fear from my part here. How can I be considerate, trying to help the other person, but not being judgmental? I mean, judging his or her situation, his or her previous decisions, his circumstances.
Yeah. So, 니지 양다 인문기 디토니 샤바이나세 따베잖아 데인데와 아주 미치케니 고지기 인세하게 되나 그러나 야랑제 디펜시거레 디 베베지거레 다바테 공부 지금 원전 토야게 되는 라자니 세그네고 어 데리게 내단지 그one 샤바이나 아니 그런 게 디시게거레 그런 게 내가 같이가 다 마음 바쳐서 왔어 이제 니에 그런 게 다 디시게거레 데레문이 이나 맨나세 디 judgment system but you also worry Suzuki 아니야 내단의 차상과지 마시게 돈에 그런 노반 대개니 바로 보들가 말을 타게 봐. 천전지와 아니 이게 바로 보다 근데 천전지와 되다 산지 거 관련된 있다고 말해. 중기 단지 보니 미디 딱이 사마레 된데 강시스야게 어딘지 마용 어딘지 간데스 제거레스 배치자나미 내단 카카레 아니 그 잡중 카카레 그런 게니 그 권리당 성악하카데 아니 이게 쉽진 바즈 탈진 바즈 마신이 미디지 이거는 맨날 똑바로 사니 델라지 수수기 시세기 토니 수수 간을 뱅거가 디카잔 디차자니 차자제니 천진집이나 디 그 말하니 디 마요나 대시 가능하지
그래 집당 알아서 직든 디강라 미 참마가 삼로 카카 지르 가간 만다와 망보 요라 이는 알아서 밀라 탁시 당레나 당보니 당보 탁시 당사 몇 셈바 당나 동용고요 동용요나 결혼때 닐리공마 또 특별한 차등가 원도 소나 쇼리징이 시가 지나 때 남영 때 모인들이 통특고 말해 노적 전부 네 쇼즈네 나때 네 텐쇼를 세를 쇼때 삼로 코소나 미티기 균 참아 값지니 노착을 값당네 모인들이 통특고 말 어디기 문튼 쇼르가 고메서 답는 파티도 쇼때나 디 쇼르진이 람송티 삼로 당네 득소는 삼로 당정나 때라 셰당거네 지 문튼 쇼티기 값당네 디온드지가 통특고 말 된자 미직 결혼근 냄과 자고에나 미디 통보 초라 동용 지냈다고 초라 동용 지냈다가 용어서 르는데 참아 딱레시지 꼬르지가 지용고 그런 거 까지 셨던 거니 그런 거 셈그 걸롱지 당 질지 당 가는 건좀 또토고 이나 미 요리 사오도 하고 말 칸이 새끼들 런리 옆에 가가요 진짜 못 듣고 말했어 따띠 잡고 다시 가는 거다 잡중라 그런 호마 가르가르치셔 그런 년코르 그 낭미 타니 미드존 냠데 길런지네 코 가르가르레가 가르치셔 코 따다 가르가르치는데 땡 호미 로지 tel라시니 호미 그건 지와들라 호미 나 샤프키로 가라 펜수 소바 요기 차 가르치자 드기 차 가르치자 어디 로지 질론치네 때 다주지 고르마도 때마도 전만 진짜 어린다 참아 딱리 시즈니 남들도 뜻이고 어린다 참아 딱리 시즈나 르기땅 그런 거 싸움로 땅땅땅 그런 내가 지는 간르지 그런 시쇼는 넘바로 가지 요나 때고 가지시니 르비 로나 그런 거 셈고 땅니 네 땅망아서 뜻이 버려야지 이나 때 야차가 야탐바 시그르데 뜻이 말해 요즘이나 요지 첨보이나 띵 뭐땅 셰줄 리규 토트가 말때는 잡수 지고서 때다다 소소소 르빙네 삼바 동용진네 르바 배주 땅네 타주진네 다마 밀라카차티 로 밀라티 타가랑 조지 당보 밀라카차티 티니당 간다간다제 미 몽블 찍고는 마토자 야민 시크 간이셔죠 코론 데가 쇼는 코론 조지 얘기로 어때 타마데 소소 타조랑 찍고 그래서 뜻이고 뜻이나 소동동 댐트 그래서
If I understood your question correctly and translated correctly, then here's the response. Well, yes. So how to avoid not being judgmental and assess the situation and others correctly and compassionately. And so to answer your question, I guess we have to approach the situation and from a general point of view, and then to be work on something that's more specific. Okay, first of all, in general, and so in general, we have to admit, we have to bear in our mind that people are generally very different. and everybody has their own sort of personality and living experience, and then and predispositions. So everyone is very different, unique. Okay, each of us are a very unique being, and so that's also a reminder to us why that there are many different religions, spiritual traditions, right? And so people are different, religions they follow a different religion. That's the fact, right? We have to respect that, and then keep this in mind, right? Bear this in the reality, in fact, in mind. Then we must apply the investigation, or use the tool, a technique of investigation or inquiry or research, right? And to determine whether we are we treat others fairly, and the way we assess the situation or others and correctly. So I guess the way to reach our goal, being correctly and fairly judge others and understand the situation correctly. The number one thing, the very first step you need taking is try to, instead of doing anything, try to make one thing happen, or one thing taking place that in your mind, that is equanimity. Okay, so you have to by exercise a particular the technique which can help you to brought you up to the state of mind where you can truly be experience the equanimity. You can equal, right, and be purely neutral, unbiased, impartiality. So you are in the state of, right. You have to brought yourself up to the state of mind where you are absolutely purely impartial and neutral and unbiased, right? That's the equanimity. Once you have to know that how important it is to make yourself be unbiased or live arise to the state of mind of equanimity is because if you're not able to brought yourself to the equanimity, state of equanimity, then you could be one way or another, and you will be affected by the two sets of opposite forces of the mind, which is attachment or desire, and then opposite, which is aversion, right? So under the influence of attachment, we know that if, in the case of like a candidate, you want to support someone who run the like a public, right, the office, right? And so with the attachment, and then you definitely will not see that person's the downside of that person or his or her weakness, right? And or you would assess that person's ability and the good quality. You could sort of can exaggerate that person's ability and his or her capacity or individuality. But you would sort of try to consciously or unconsciously hiding that person's sort of the weakness or the downside of that individuality, like his capacity or her personality, and so on and so forth, right? That's what the attachment would do if you fail to brought yourself up to the state of equanimity in your mind, right? And then assess the situation and assess the person. And by contrast, if you are not attached to the person, for example, if you go with the party line to vote a particular individual because you are a political party affiliation, and you could, right, experience some kind of aversion against the person who opposite who against your candidates, right? And this sense of aversion, a dislikeness of others, again, would mislead you, put you under the impression, and even he or she has no good quality. He or she is totally distressed, can be distressed, and or is has no any positive quality whatsoever. So this, see, the downside of not being in the mentally in equanimity would affect you by those two very opposite and destructive, harmful, afflictive emotions, right? Attachment and the aversion. So therefore, I mean, as Dharma scripture repeatedly suggested, and we must first of all, before we make any decision or any the formal sort of conclusion about a certain thing or a certain person, we must check our feeling, our sensibility, our senses, see whether the way how we feel ourselves is real, equal, or in neutral, or impartial. We must make that happening, right? To make that happening, and yes, that's what we need to do. And secondly, so that requires some form of mental exercise, right? And prior to make a decision and make yourself brought yourself to the state of equanimity. But others technique, I would say, to avoid not being judgmental is depend upon the logical reasoning. Right? What is the logical reasoning? How important it is? According to Buddhist, one of the discipline or the science of Buddhism, which is Buddhist epistemology, and according to Buddhist epistemology, that it says that the categorization of the individual person and the nature, a categorization of the characters of the events can be judged by or can be determined by the valid the combination, valid combination. So valid combination and can be formed or can be developed by various way. And for example, you have a lot of experiences, and you can apply those experiences and then see whether that individual or event is belong to this or that or others categorization, right? And having said that, of course, it's not easy to determine the others by their behavior, their action, and their verbal and expressions. And it is difficult in many cases, particularly those who are very tricky. Okay, the person who are very tricky and very experienced player who knows how to manipulate, who knows how to conceive and others, right? And mislead others. Who is very experienced and very skilled in that in this kind of situation. Then, of course, it just apply your experience, right? And use some kind of common sense and to determine whether that person is genuine or is ingenuine, is good or is bad. And of course, it's hard. But that doesn't mean we have no way to do the best job, right? Try our best to reach the best outcome about that very skilled, experienced, and trickery person. A person who knows how to, who is very tricky and who knows how to deceive us. That is, so here you cannot apply your experience, right? And your common sense is kind of feels short. Then what you need to do is you can approach his relative, his close friends, his former sort of colleagues, and the working place, and the place where he was grow up or she was grow up, and he or she's his friend or her friend. So someone who has been sort of knows this person for a long time, and then you can interview them, and from their mouth, from their experience, and then you can then you apply your own common sense, your own experience, I guess, and we can make some kind of at least a fair conclusion about the situation and about the person. So again, yes, to make it really a fair and right judgment or assertion about the thing, and or the conclusion about concluding someone, it requires a long time, the friendship or the familiarity. In many cases, of course, we don't have that 100%, right, the experience or the knowledge. So therefore, we must carefully and take time and carefully do our try our best. Which means that first of all, we have to apply our own, and we have to promote ourselves or brought ourselves. Number one, brought ourselves to the state of equanimity, right? And then, secondly, we must rely on, depend upon the logical reasoning or critical logical reasoning, and intelligence, right? Intelligence, and then lastly, we must ask if we feel our experience and knowledge is short and not sufficient, then we must conduct the interview or the research and to go to the actual place and do the investigation ourselves and interview the person who knows better than us. I guess through this way we can at least do something which is less less harmful, or not as terribly mistaken as it could be. So therefore, in Tibetan we say that inquiry others, but to make a decision your own. Okay? Inquiry others or asking others' opinion, but take a decision yourself. So yes, and equanimity and application of the logical reasoning, and asking others for their opinions or advice. And that's I think the way. This is the way I think it can help us to avoid being judgmental or make a wrong decision. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much.
르송스도 인조 니트게즈도 담아다 야 뭐도 냥 냥지 고르스 냥지 곰나 냥지 곰통데 간다즈 세트 세고 송고서 냥지 곰이 올수 냥지 곰스 파쇼데라 다티노 캬프리요 모부 치니 곰통 간다즈 세트 세고서 단득 다 수족소는 공다시라 하땡 도도스마 정도이나
Oh yeah. Okay. So now I think I didn't hear your question clearly. Krishna says your actual questions about the compassion, and so how to not be judgmental but truly compassionate. And so it's my mistake and apology. I apologize for my misinterpretation. So Krishna says, because we are running out of time, maybe we just end today's discussion here.
Can I read a small paragraph of Dalai Lama's? Just a small paragraph. Can I do that? It's about compassion. Okay?
Yeah.
So when he's talking about himself when he was young, he said 1 year when there was a famine in our region and many families did not have enough to eat, my mother gave whatever food we had stored to our neighbors and those in need. In this way, she tended the seed of that most important lesson by demonstrating how to practice compassion. She showed me as a child that it was possible to treat all people the seed is sprouted from. I have often returned to the seed of compassion my mother planted, in which I carried with me. As a small child at home, as a young monk in training, and today as I spread the message of compassion around the world.
This may be a good answer for you. Okay. Yeah.
이거 내는 거라고 그러자.
말 못다. 저기나 못 뎁지 너무 좋았어. 정말 가루지 정말 총총 이게까지도 와.
맞아. 내는 놈들이 아니면 지금 연습
시동 지금도 와. 보고 총총 시동 정도는 뭐 시동 뛰는 거 같아. 야, 사실 것 같이 당연히 라우르만 더. or the deja commodic. Yeah, just specific church.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you, Geshe-la, Temba, and then if you would like to make a donation for this teaching, it would be greatly appreciated by the monastery and the monks. And you can do this by calling 812-336-6807 or by emailing the center at tmbcc.kcl@gmail.com. For those of you in the temple, I will pass around the begging bowl, and if you would like to make a donation, it would be greatly appreciated. And at noon, we will have another teaching today in the temple and on Zoom. And this week it'll be Geshe Khalsang who will teach the intermediate stages of meditation. Okay, thank you.
Closing prayer on page number 80.
La zhe shang 修浪迹人别江，谈多难解有老火的上。为造包容的结晶，朗诵着别的见证写下，我见谁写么当么们跟。热干的要为我把意，南到南当着玩马儿去，刚才他把手拿起就是此人的南街道的中西上，这些江左手跟着日就。为喇嘛人不习的所念个把密当日那个人先不顾你接送可送推荐爱着咱的所上车身处人不习马街瓦的节节节节瓦娘把没本儿呀功德陪我说ราวิกุรวิสังคัมสุพันธังเทวามาลิจงวินิจฉันจิตหังตันจะยังสุสันติปาร์ตตันจิรจุยาบปาวจิตระเจมบาตังกันดสัมโบเทหังเทจิTe ta kan ji ji se da lo jang ge wan de ta tham ji ra de ngo ti sam sha bi ya wa tham ji ngo kang lan cho de ngo ba de da jin ge wi sa wa de kan song chu shi ra de ngo er ji pan de jong de tam ba dar shang ji tan zhen ji wo tam ji kan kang zong de恩中为内上界担保道德一日之在这跟的要我宗高为当主席能力是这边要为我被朗诵的你的感觉怎样多不马
I have one more announcement. There will also be a Tara Puja tomorrow on Zoom and in here at 10 o'clock.